twist and move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and welcome to Broad Radio for another Tuesday. My name's Jo Stanley. My co-host today and new co-host to Broad Radio, I'm thrilled to welcome Serpil Senelmis. Hi, Serpil.
Hello, Jo.
Oh, it's lovely to have you joining Broad Radio. You're a broadcaster, you're a podcaster. Tell us a little bit about what kind of audio content. Gee, that's a very industry thing to say. Conversations, interviews, podcasts. What do you like to listen to yourself?
I love history podcasts. I get quite obsessed with history podcasts because you can just go down this rabbit warren of, oh, that's what we did as humans. And it's quite shocking to find out what we did as humans. At the moment, I'm obsessing over this series called Real Dictators because I don't listen to lightweight history. I just go straight for the hard stuff.
Sure.
So, you know, you meet charming people like Hitler and Stalin and Tojo from Japan and Idi Amin and, you know, all the good characters of history. And it sort of puts you in this dark space of what are we capable of doing to one another. But also it's really good to listen to because as you're watching the news, I sort of start going, that happened in that podcast, and these are the sort of key elements. Like, you know, when World War I happened, it was just one silly incident that sparked an entire war across the world. And I start getting a bit like the Ukraine and Russia situation. Yes. I'm like, are we hurtling towards World War III?
Well, I do wonder, are there patterns of behaviour that you recognise even in our leaders that aren't potentially dictators, but there's sort of qualities that they might still have?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure we've all worked with a manager where we're like, yeah, I can see if you were given a little bit more power where you would step into that dictatorial role easily.
I think, yes. That's how I rule Broad Radio. Yeah. Not really, not at all. Actually, you know what? It's very lovely to have you, Serpil, and we'll learn more about you as we go along. I was going to take my cues from the Prime Minister this week and have my husband come in and speak on my behalf, but he would refuse to actually own my ills and my mistakes, my husband. Although I did once insist that we go to Hawaii on a holiday, so...
Right. You know. And did he take the fall for you?
He would never. He would let me burn, my husband.
Or does he play the uke instead?
He does not do that either. We are going to be addressing the week that was in a little while, and certainly we've had the Prime Minister and Jenny Morrison on 60 Minutes. We've had the amazing address in the National Press Club from Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins. And there's just been so much going on, so we'll be talking about that in a little while. Also today on the show, one of our all-time favourite comedians, Denise Scott, is joining us, as is a sexologist and someone who's going to help us step into our feminine power, Vanessa Muradian. We can't wait to bring that to you in just a moment. It's all coming up after this. Broad Radio is proudly supported by Chemist Warehouse. Chemist Warehouse, great savings every day. So as we always say, if you're watching or listening live, do please join the conversation on YouTube or Facebook. We'd love to see your thoughts and comments and questions as we go along in our conversation. You can catch up on all of our recent and last episodes via our podcast, Broad Radio on the Go, and go back and listen to this one again if you wish. Serpil, like many in the country, you and I did not watch 60 Minutes with the Prime Minister. because I would rather scrub a bush toilet than watch that, to be honest. I've got better things to do with my time. But we've seen lots of clips. And what particularly caught your eye around that interview?
It was the comment that Jenny made around Grace Tame and her manners. So, you know, she said that she was being rude when she visited them. And, I mean, I actually printed off a section of what she said. She said, I just found it a little bit disappointing because we were welcoming her in our home. I just wish the focus had been on the incredible people coming in. I respect people that want to change things, stand up for their beliefs and are strong, but I still think there are manners and respect. So this didn't quite sit right with me for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I just find it really odd that women are told that we have to smile on cue. When, you know, Kenneth Hayne, who did the Banking Royal Commission, was sitting next to Josh Frydenberg and they had a photo op, he had this really glum look on his face. Social media didn't go into meltdown about why he wasn't smiling. He's not the only man who's not cracked a smile. I think women get told too often, you know, how to behave. I've had it all my life. I think women of colour experience that a lot as well. You know, oh, you're giggling too much. No, you're too serious. No, you're too opinionated. You're too loud. You're just too much. I think what it does is it takes away from the core issue and it deflects. And I think it was Madeleine Albright, right, who said, you know, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. I can't remember the exact quote. Someone will correct me, but it goes something along those lines. Instead of focusing on the core issue, which is around abuse, assault, you know, abuse of women, assault of women, of children, we're talking about the behaviour of someone, whether they smiled or didn't. And instead what we should be focusing on as a nation, instead the conversation we should be having is some of the key points that Grace and Brittany addressed in the press club address, which was, you know, around things like we've got extraordinary high levels of domestic violence in this country. What actions are we taking around that? She said something like children get abused in this country at the rate of 1 in 6 boys, 1 in 4 girls.
Yeah.
What are we doing about that?
Yeah, I can't even believe that the conversation hasn't been from the moment that Grace Tame was named Australian of the Year last year. Why wasn't the Prime Minister and everyone else around him saying, how do we stop this happening to another child?
That's right.
Boy or girl, how do we stop this ever happening? It astounds me that we were so focused on Grace and how she behaves, and other than the courage that she brings. And in the recent 24 hours where there's this photo of her as a 19-year-old with a bong in the photo, again, I just can't fathom why anyone gives a shit about that, particularly as it's known that people who are survivors of abuse will turn to substances. Why wouldn't you? Honestly.
well, I mean, you need something to numb your pain. You've gone through extreme trauma, and I think as a nation, we have to take collective responsibility about re-traumatising someone who's actually gone through massive trauma. And we need to shift the conversation around what are we actually doing as a nation to stop this. And what really upsets me is that this isn't a political issue. This is an issue about how we function as a society. I don't care who you vote for, you know, who you like, who you don't like. At the end of the day, we want to function as a society and we don't want this happening to anyone's kid. And what stayed with me from Grace's speech was the section where she mentioned the money that we invest in education, 11 cents per child per year. You can't even get a stick of gum for 11 cents. That's staggering. That's disgraceful.
Absolutely. The other thing that I found really hard in the clips that I saw of the Morrisons on 60 Minutes is the turning to his wife for her to wear some of the mistakes he's made as Prime Minister, which again, I also have spent a lifetime being told how I should behave, but I've also, in my career, spent a long time being the moral guardian, the gatekeeper for the men that I've worked with. And that is such a boring, old, really, it's an oppressive thing to wear as a woman, and why women are held to account when men behave in a way that may not be as appropriate as you wish. I don't understand. Like, that sends me crazy. And she, again, was having to do that.
The fall guy. It's, you know, it wasn't me, it was the wife. She pushed me into going to, you know, holidays in Hawaii, except that she wasn't elected to represent us. He was elected to represent us. So he had a responsibility to say to his wife, well, you know, let's park this holiday. I know we want to go, love. I know we all need a break, but at this moment we can't. Let's just delay it by a month. Let's just delay it by 6 weeks. That would have been the sensible thing to do.
Or do what a lot of families do. You go on holiday with the kids. My job has called me back because the country is on fire.
Yeah.
Like, you know, families do these things,
Yeah.
I guess. We welcome lots of people who are already joining us. Donna and Vivian Turner, who's joining us from Shearwater, Tasmania. Love that. And Etche, again, lovely to see you on our comments there on Facebook. I'm going to say that if you are disheartened by any of our party politics, and particularly the Prime Minister, there are lots of options heading into this federal election in the form of independence and the extraordinary women who are running, of which there are their qualifications are extraordinary. We've got Claire Boardman, who is running against Greg Hunt in Victoria. So she's the Deputy Public Health Commander for Infection and Prevention and Control in the Department of Health. Incredibly qualified. We've got Monique Ryan, who's the Director of the Department of Neurology at the Children's Hospital in Melbourne, who is running opposite Josh Frydenberg. Of course, our own Zoe Daniel, who is co-host here on Broad Radio, when she has time. Now that she's running for Parliament, she's got a little bit on. But, you know, extraordinary women that we can all perhaps look to as an alternative, because most certainly when I see the Prime Minister playing the ukulele, I'm like, I'm not voting for you because you play a ukulele. I want to vote for someone who's going to be a Prime Minister.
That's right. And the band who wrote that song Dragon took issue with it, Jo. You know,
yes.
they were like, no, you can't be using our tune to play on the uke.
Yeah, well, I think that is... I wouldn't be happy. It's a great song. It's a great song. That is a party pleaser, that one. Anyway, look, we present to you those independents as an alternative, and I just love that those women are doing it and stepping up. And there are other independents around the country that I didn't name there, so we encourage you to check them out. In the meantime, it's time for a laugh. My gosh, we need one. And so it's a thrill to welcome to the show for the second time, back by popular demand, one of our favourite comics. Hi there, Denise Scott.
Hello there, beautiful ladies.
Hello.
Now, Scotty, you and Judith are hitting the road again, and you're doing a show called Still Here. And I love that you're called Still Here, because I feel like women are often, you know, our opinions are not welcome as we age, and we're encouraged to go and retire to a couch and watch daytime television, but you're still here.
We are indeed still here, and it was that excited us and you know, gave us the title for the show, but also because we both live in lockdown, and we live in Melbourne in lockdown rather, for 2 years, opposite sides of the river, and the fact that we got through that and that we're still here and coming out and doing a show, you know, is what we have to offer. And because we love the song.
Still Here. What's that song? Do you know that song?
I didn't know that song.
It's showbiz. It's the one from Postcards on the Edge where Shirley MacLaine, good times and bum times, I've seen them all, but my dear, I'm still here.
Yes.
The terrific thing being that neither Judith, Lucy, nor I can sing or dance, or, to be honest, act. And we've written a show that has not one, not two, but 3 dance routines, and a couple of songs, and quite a lot of poignancy. Poignant moment. Look
Love
out.
Hey, Scotty, you mentioned you put this show together during the lockdowns. Can you take us through the process a little bit? What I mean, were you like, am I on mute? Am I on mute? How do we do this? How do you practice a dance routine if you're not in the same space?
Well, Serpil, it takes extraordinary skill and extraordinary talent. But what Judith and I did was, in the last lockdown, which was, I think, lockdown number 6, anyway, we thought, well, we'll use this time and we'll write a show on Zoom. And so we'd meet once a week. And I'm not lying when I say Judith, because she was living by herself, would often sit there just crying. And I'd just look into the middle distance, unable to know what I could do or say to cheer her up, because I was in my own painful state. And so we'd just sit there, and that would happen. And then we'd say, oh, maybe that's enough for today. And but in the end, and I think that's why we have come up with a show that is genuinely bonkers. Like, our shows always are, but this one is bonkers. And we could not, we're usually people who are very, very focused in our work on just words, precise words, and a bit of improv with the audience. This has got so many sound cues and music cues and props, things falling from the ceiling. We didn't stop. We just thought, well, why not? And we've only just been informed that because of this, shall we say, high standard of production, we are going to be touring this show and probably make no money, because we have spent everything on props and costumes and music.
Well, the audience will love it, though. Your audience is so they have such great affection for you two, and it's lovely to see the affection that the two of you have together as well. What a delight to have that, to be able to share that with one of your best mates. I mean, it's kind of like, I see you as sort of like when you're on tour, half of the Golden Girls, you know.
Oh, excuse me, Jo. Surely we're not of that age. But no, it is an absolute joy, and it's been a joy because Judith and I managed to scrounge together various projects during the 2 years of lockdown in Melbourne, and it was just great having someone else. Just a wonderful thing, and to appease the loneliness that being a comedian usually involves. You know, we have a good laugh, and also, you know, if the audience don't laugh at my jokes, Judith will. So there's always someone in my corner.
I love the fact that you've worked with Judith since the 90s. Can you tell us a little bit about how important that sort of sisterhood is in the comedy scene, and how the comedy scene has changed in your time that you've been working together? Is she a bit of a work wife, your rock?
She's my Jenny, as Morrison would say. She's my Jenny. If it goes bad, it's Judith's fault. It's all Judith's fault. No, it's yes. So we met in the 90s, and you may have heard us tell this story before, but originally we were in a show called Comedy Is Not Pretty with our third member, the late Linda Gibson, and that was a fantastic trio. And then during the course of doing our second show, Linda's ovarian cancer, you know, the prognosis was terminal. And so we were dealing with the death of a really close, beloved friend who we worked with. And that really forged our bond, because we learnt during that time that, oh yes, the show is important, but wow, there's something going on here that's much greater. And that really has stuck with us for the rest of our working life with Judith and I, that our ego, whilst it's there, it doesn't get in the way of us really enjoying one another and really wanting the best for one another. Do I sound like I'm giving a TED talk? I hope so. I hope so. But it's true. We really, it's often in comedy, and it's really natural, you're so desperate for attention and the laughs that you want it at all costs, really. But I'm really happy when Judith is firing, because I get to sit back, have a sip of wine. We always have a glass of wine with us on stage, watch her perform.
That's beautiful. I don't know if, because, I started out in stand-up, I don't do it anymore, but I do always feel as though when you see women perform comedy, it is a slightly subversive act just by the fact that you're there.
Oh, yes. And it's interesting that you say that, Jo, because it still is, I agree, a subversive act. And in most venues now, though, I have to say, with younger audiences, it doesn't feel like that, especially the younger audiences. But I recently, it was just in between lockdowns, I got to do a private party. I was a stripper, don't get me wrong, I went back to my old job. But no, I got to, which is weird. It's always weird going to do stand-up comedy at a private party, but they were lovely people, a group of, and mostly medical people. And the men who would have been average age 70 were really uncomfortable with me there. Like it was bizarre, and sort of made weird jokes at my expense, and because they were uncomfortable that a woman was walking in and that they didn't know and going to take the floor and make the speech, and we got through it, and it was absolutely fine. Like, I had a good time, but it reminded me that this is still weird. It's weird for them, and now it's become weird for me.
Yeah, that's it's crazy, isn't it, to imagine?
But do you think that's an age-specific thing? You mentioned that, there were 70-year-old blokes. So if they were, a room full of 20-year-old young things, do you think that they would have been like, woo, Denise?
Well, if they'd known who I was, as a 20-year-old. But I think they are more used to it, definitely, younger folk.
Scotty, I saw recently on your Twitter feed, you still get the odd write-up here and there in the ladies' mags, and you had a little piece in, I believe it was Women's Weekly, where they were very kind to you as far as the photo that they included in that magazine.
Yes, so I write a short column for the Women's Weekly every month, and it's become a thing that what I write about, they do a graphic art little thing and stick it. So, oh God, I'm so articulate at this time of the morning. So what happens is they use my face, and I have to say that shot is photoshopped the bejesus out of it. So my face looks, say, a lovely 45-year-old with absolutely no wrinkles and no acne or anything. So it's a good photo. But then to my body, they change. Absolutely. It's not my body. It's not my hand. Whatever the topic is about. And, of course, the one you're talking about was getting a bra. Now, I say in the article I have to get a 16G bra. But the picture they've added is the body of me with, I don't know, what would you say, Jo, a sort of 20-year-old with size 12,
look,
12A bra?
At most, that is a 12C, I would say, at most. Very tight, very tidy little arrangement that person has.
See, and I love it. My manager goes, oh, this is a bit, this is taking liberties, and I love it. I love the fact. But my daughter, I did a column because I've just had my first grandchild, and my daughter, the mother of the child, I wrote about Lenny, my grandson, and the photo is me holding a baby who, of course, is not Lenny, but holding him up, this big, gurgly, chubby baby. My daughter was mortified. But I said, well, they just grab a picture of whoever. I love it.
So how is your relationship with your body, though, as you're aging? Are you sort of embracing it all, warts and all, or are you happy that they've chucked a 20-year-old boobs on you?
Oh, do not say warts. Because I don't know whether this is common, and it's repulsive. I have this wart virus. So they're sort of flash, but they're all over my décolleté.
I think that's called TMI, Denise.
What is it?
Too much information. It's never too much information from Scotty. Keep going.
No, you'll love it, especially if you're eating your breakfast. But it's just weird, and there's a whole lot of things as you age that happen, and you go to the doctor and they just say, oh, yeah, that's whatever, nothing we can do. And so off you go, and I'm not, my relation to my body, I'm disappointed because I have arthritis, and so I just can't move like I used to. I can't squat. Hello. That's upsetting to me, when you, because I watched, did you see that, it's Sophia Arista? Do you know who I'm talking about? An American singer. Mm-hmm. Her clip went viral. I'm really up with the young folk stuff. And anyway, she's an American singer, and she was performing on stage. You'll have to Google it afterwards. And she got a volunteer from the audience, a bloke, to come up and lie on his back. Did you see this?
Yes, and then she
stood over the top of his face and dropped her trousers and slowly lowered herself and pissed on him.
Yeah,
and,
I saw that.
I know, isn't that
I'm shocked.
And I thought, and see, when I see that, I think, oh, wow, I've got arthritis in both knees. I could never do that. See, that's how I look at life now.
Yeah, it's a shame that you've closed the door on squatting and weeing on someone's face, isn't it?
I know it would, but mind you, Judith can still do it. So you never know what might happen in our show. Just don't come on stage. Lucky it's COVID, we can't have people on stage anymore.
Yes, it's a relief that you won't be then invited to do such a thing. The guy was up for it, apparently.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that makes it okay then.
He was up for it.
Yes. It wasn't. I'd say it was a little bit of a setup, quite frankly.
I think, is that called a golden shower?
It's apparently called, yes. Yeah. You're so fucking simple.
We're very quick off the mark with that information, Jo.
I know, Serpil's right across the golden shower, it seems. We are going to be joined by a sexologist very soon, actually, Scotty, so we'll delve deeper into that, perhaps. I don't know if it's the sort of information that you need to take away with you, Scotty.
Oh, well, are you leading me into something here, Jo? Something that I tweeted?
No. Oh, you made me laugh so much when you saw that you were going to be sharing a show with a sexologist whose name is Vanessa Muradian. She's extraordinary. Can't wait to chat with her. But, it's perhaps a different stage of life for you.
Yes, and something, yes, I did go. And this is true, a visit to the gynecologist, and she said a word you never, ever want to hear the gynecologist say when they're peering up your vagina, and it was atrophied. Now, that, with the warts on the décolletage, and Serpil, you asked me how I feel about my body, I don't feel fantastic. I'm not skipping around the room with joy. Well, I can't skip because of the arthritis, but it's done its job.
Gets you from A to B. Yeah.
And it's not all over. Look, I just want to show you this. Creams, There's things you can do.
With
There's creams for that sort of. There's creams for that sort of business.
I'm taking
ladies.
notes. I'm taking notes.
I've heard tell there's creams for that sort of business. We'll ask Vanessa about that as well when we get to her. Scotty, we're so excited that you and Judith are touring the country again. Do check it out wherever you are. I know that you'll visit that city at some point. I know that you're hitting Melbourne in April for Still Here.
We are indeed.
But then you're heading off around the country.
Heading off around the country. We go to Canberra next week. Because, of course, now it's all about dodging COVID so that you can actually perform. That's our you know, Judith and I are always talking about, what do you mean you went out for dinner? You can't go out for dinner. We have to stay COVID free till we get to do our show. But anyway, thus far, all good.
Yeah, well, we're thrilled. And, you know, so far people have been, we've had people on the line, by the way, Scotty, that said that they would listen to you do a TED Talk any day of the week.
Well, you know, goodness me, I'm there and I'm ready. And
Yep.
I've got so many ghastly things to talk about. and share in my, lack of ability to cope with many of the harsher things that come life's way. And of course, that's what Judith and I always celebrate, disappointments, failures, you know, and we love it. We have a ball.
Yeah, we are. Well, everybody in your audience does too. I can't wait to see it myself. Scotty, all the best and give our love to Jude and have a great tour. I hope you manage to get around the country COVID free.
Thank you. And look, I've got a confession to make and you know that I had to get my husband John out of bed to help me set up this call this morning. And he plays ukulele like non-stop. He's a big ukulele player. So he's taken that 60 minutes pretty hard. It's not doing his image any good. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Scotty. You take care.
You too. Thank you, Serpil. Thank you, Jo.
We'll have more Broad Radio after this. Now, Serpil, a couple of things to get through that we've spotted during the week, which is super fun to chat about. You were telling me about a really awesome series that you've just binged.
I fell in love with this series. When I find an actress that I really connect with, I follow them through series. So I discovered Alison Brie in Mad Men. Then she took me to the kooky comedy Community. And from there, I landed on Glow, which is short for Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. And what a delight this series is, because it's a bunch of women who step into their power essentially in the wrestling ring. So if you've ever watched Hulk Hogan when you were a kid, which I did with my dad.
Of course, we all watched Hulk Hogan.
You know, the premise of the show is that women can't do this, and they absolutely can, and they do. It's just glorious script writing, because women are shown in all of their sort of complexities. We see their physical limitations, we see their mental limitations, we see so many complex characters. We see single mothers, we see women trying to be mothers, we see women having body issues, we see women coping with the fact that they come from a history of genocide. So it's really complex, and it's packaged up into this beautiful, fun bubble of wrestling where you just see women smashing each other in the ring, and I just love it.
Yeah, and the best fashion from the 80s, and the glitter and the hair and the makeup and everything. It's so awesome. I loved this series too, and it reminded me of roller derby. In that, like, it's that space where we love dress ups, but we want to smash the shit out of each other as well. Like, we want to be really physical and strong and powerful, but gorgeous and glamorous as well.
Yeah, you got to look pretty hot in your spandex and a lot of glitter, a lot of makeup. It's the best of the 80s, you know. It's just glorious.
Yeah, it is a super fun series. Unfortunately, they had their 4th season cancelled because of COVID, and they couldn't shoot it because it's such a physical like the scenes are they're up in each other's faces.
Wow, yeah.
And not just faces, up in each other, their armpits and wherever else they might be wrestling. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that they had to cancel it, which was a real shame. But, yeah, it's one of those, it's an awesome series. And it got me thinking about all of the subversive spaces. We're just speaking about comedy there with Scotty, but there's wrestling, there's roller derby, there's, surfing and, there's so many spaces where women sort of go, I'm just going to own this. AFL, cricket, rugby,
Soccer.
It's so exciting to see that happening, and I can't wait though for when our children's that generation are our age and they're like, why are we even talking about this?
Yeah, that's right. Wrestling, sure, I can do that, Mum. I'll just get my shorts on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, check out that series. It is really awesome, and I love an ensemble cast full of amazing women.
And it's so diverse. This cast is so diverse. That's why I loved it as well. They're all relatable. So there's one character that you always feel really aligned with. For me, it was because I followed Alison Brie there. It's the lead character, Ruth. She's just so flawed and so complex. And I just love how they're not two-dimensional. Often in shows like this, women are really two-dimensional. They're really fully fleshed characters. You kind of feel like, I could be mates with that person.
I love that. That is the best. While we were doing a little précis of the week, I spied a thing that caught my eye on Twitter, and it was initially I saw this wall of boobs on my Twitter feed, and I was like, wow, look at that. It's like 43 breasts, I believe, are there, or maybe there's more than that. I can't do my sums. 5/8. Anyway, whatever. However many women are there, and it's actually from an Adidas campaign where they have released 43 different styles of sports bras, which is pretty impressive.
It's so impressive. But when I look at that ad campaign and I see those free boobs,
yeah,
it just encourages me not to wear a bra, because at the best of times I'm like, I hate wearing a bra. I find it so constrictive. So I'm not sure in terms of an ad campaign if other women will react like me and think, let's just go free. Let's not buy the sports bra.
I don't know. Well, maybe. I mean, I'm a sports bra wearer because I run, and I look at that, and I was trying to work out which one is me. If I was in a lineup, so there's 25, a grid of 25 pairs of breasts there, right? And if I was to be in a lineup, which one of those would I be? Because they are such weird-looking things,
They
boobs.
are, and I sort of had a little quick glance at them, and I couldn't see my boobs in there. And it sort of reminded me of, have you ever been to Mona in Tasmania?
Yes.
It reminded me of the vagina exhibition where you walk down the gallery and there's the plaster casts of all of the different vaginas. I took my mum there and she was just like, oh, wow.
Yes.
I didn't know we were so different. And I had the same reaction to the boobs. I was looking at them yesterday thinking, I did not realise how different boobs could be.
I love it. It's fantastic. There should be more of it. It's obviously, again, subversive to see breasts just natural doing what they do, just hanging there. I love it. It's so great. I feel like there's a bit of a theme in today's show because next up we're going to be speaking with Vanessa Muradian, sexologist, who's going to show us how to step into our feminine power, and there may be a bit of free breastage as a part of that. That's coming up after this.
Australians know that sun exposure can cause skin cancer, but dermatologists also know that it can cause wrinkles, pigmentation and age spots. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis, we've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
It's time to step up into our power, into our feminine pussy power. I need to read this to engage with the femme within. That's what we're doing here now. Serpil, and we're doing it with the extraordinary sexologist and founder of Mia Muse, which is a wonderful website you might want to check out. That's a great resource, and you can find all the things there that you might wish to help you step and into your femme within. Vanessa Muradian, hi there. I've got your cards here, which I absolutely love. How are you this morning, Vanessa?
Hi, Jo. Hi, Serpil. I am good.
You have you've produced Big Pussy Energy, these cards, which is all about us engaging and connecting with the femme within. What does that even mean?
Great question, because I feel passionately about it. And obviously putting something out into the world called Big Pussy Energy is quite a task in this modern day, and with all the sensitivities out in the world and people having access, it was nerve-wracking, but something I feel really passionate about. I am a sexologist and a yoga practitioner, so we're often talking in yoga about polarity of existence, which can be labeled masculine and feminine, yin, yang. In yoga, it is Shiva and Shakti, sometimes known as divine feminine, divine masculine. So from my perspective, these cards are about how we cultivate the qualities of the feminine energy, regardless of how we identify, because that is important to me. Gender. I've been working with women now for 13 years, but I am queer, and that keeps developing and being more and more safe. And I work with a lot of queer people, so that was really important for me to make this conversation really inclusive and accessible. So Big Pussy Energy, as maybe your pussy and your vulva if you have one, but essentially the access to the qualities of nurturing, compassion, leading with love in action, community driven, and more connection to the self, so that we can be of service in a beautiful, full way to the world around us. And really a balancing of the toxic kind of patriarchy that we've been, as people with cyclical bodies, been putting that into this linear system. And really, for me, it feels like bound and driving this home in a society that looks like this, and very goal oriented and rule oriented, and which doesn't necessarily serve people who have cycles, who fluctuate all throughout the day, all throughout the week, all throughout the month, all throughout the year. So how do we empower ourselves? Because it's necessary. It's so necessary right now, and we need that balance of love. I think you could even look at Jacinda Ardern in action and how she brings these qualities into leadership. And for me, that is ultimately Big Pussy Energy.
Vanessa, full disclosure, when it comes to the sex part of the conversation or the pursuit of pleasure, I've never felt comfortable having that conversation. I guess it's something to do with my upbringing, right? So, we didn't talk about sex. We pretended that it didn't exist. So you sort of, you got married, you had babies, the end. How you had the babies, well, you kind of figured it out along the way somewhere. So when Jo handed the deck of cards to me and I pulled out a card, and one of the cards that I pulled out was pussy bathing, where you allow the sun to bathe the skin of your vulva. I was like, oh, wow. And then I had a bit of a giggle because you had a warning with it. The potential for sunburn is real, you said, which I loved. I was like, oh, great. So I guess my question to you is, if I do this every day, if I pull out a card, am I going to eventually feel comfortable talking about this?
Ideally, Serpil, that would warm my heart completely. And I have been having conversations, particularly about sex and sexuality and pleasure, for the past 13 years out of Melbourne. I've been working in this really intimate space in many different ways. I love that Judith Lucy came into the conversation, because I've also had some great chats with her about all of this. And But yeah, the shame and the stigma was really why I started Mia Muse in 2008. And at that point I was 27. And, you know, I'd spent some time growing up in the States so I did year 11 and 12 in high school, went to college there for a few years. And for me, it felt so much more open there to talk about our genitals, our sex, masturbation. It was kind of revolutionary for me to be at a school where people were open, and particularly college. But so I hear essentially all day long the shame and the heaviness of what we carry, particularly as women, cis women, women who are born as women and continue to identify that way. That we've got these shackles and shame, that it wasn't allowed, but so many people are having sex. It's so important from, you know, the Eastern philosophies around our vitality and life force. And we've always looked at this as through the cis men's lens, the male gaze of what pleasure looks like. And it's been about them and pleasing them. And that was really true for me growing up. I never really felt too safe or accepted around who I was as a woman growing up. So yeah, just working with women in this way and helping liberate them and their pleasure, and that we can prioritize ourselves, and this makes us feel good and alive, and it is a sense of vitality and libidinous energy that can actually propel us into better relationships, more authenticity, creative pursuits, and that is vital in the world right now, and that we do all really, I think, need to love each other better. And sexuality has so much shame and stigma, and as we know through Brittany Higgins and Grace Tame and that conversation in the past year, how important it is that we are empowering ourselves from a young age. We cannot hate on the generations that came before us, because that is what they were in, but we are undoing that shame and that, for me, it's kind of this contracted state, this binding, that we don't deserve that, and that it's essentially too powerful. And what does it look like to feel full power as women in the world? Because we need that right now. So I hope that I know actually, Serpil, by doing these cards, if you do take the time to be with them, that they are confronting sometimes, and I write to that in the cards, and sometimes that softer guidance had to take out, because you can only fit, I think, 200 words on a card, but like breathing, pausing, taking the time, noticing maybe a contraction or a pullback, and then having a breath and softening that this is the way we want to roll, and that you deserve that, and that will serve you all day long.
I mean, I will say, like, I love the cards because so many of them are about just really being creative and expressive, and kind and compassionate and connecting with others. And, not all of them are overtly sexual. And I'm really into journaling, and I love the loving self-talk and all of that sort of stuff. But I guess I don't want to go topless in nature with my girlfriends. I think, and then I go, well, but am I a prude? Is that something am I denying myself a sense of my sexuality and liking myself more if I don't wish to do that?
I would never say yes. I would just ask you why. Even prude is such a funny word. Like, I think it's limiting, Jo. So essentially with the naked in nature, if you have followed me on Instagram or know my work, my own body love came from more nakedness and being open about that, and seeing other women's bodies. Yes, I sleep with women, so I'd been more aware and enlightened by the beauty and the diversity of all our bodies. But my own body, the acceptance of it came by being naked in front of others in an empowering way, not just only a sexual way. And from the Chinese medicine perspective and the Taoist perspective, there's so much life force and vitality in the real world around us in nature. It's called qi. So when we put our bare feet on the earth, we are actually stimulating our libido ultimately, but we are receiving vitality. So I started just like skinny dipping down at Mount Martha, and you know, the edge of also, is this illegal? Am I gonna get arrested? Was also like part of, I think, I'll say a little Grace Tame there, like, fuck it, bring it on.
Sure.
You know, like if we need to have that conversation, if it needs to be a headline, sexologist arrested at the beach for being naked, I'm happy to have that conversation. But yeah, often being naked and just, I could feel the liberation by those layers of like not doing it, then maybe the next day going skinny dipping with friends, wondering what they're thinking of my body, all these things. But over time, the more I did that, the more liberated I became, and the more easy it actually was and is to be naked.
I will say I once did, the only time I've been naked with women in, you know, just a totally, like it was a radio thing, right? But it was just me in strangely an office at work. So the environment wasn't ideal. It was me with 3 women who were naturists, and they came in and we all sort of stood around naked. And I will say it was a very profound experience for me, because I did see my body very differently after that.
Beautiful. And like, so, yeah, you can, yeah.
Oh, it just kind of, it made me realize how much I do see myself through a male gaze. Again, it's like I've been brainwashed in a way, rather than just feel it as an experience.
Yeah, and we're so similar and so unique. And this is like, it's, you know, that's what's to be embraced. It's like, and now as we're aging, and I just turned 40 last week. And, you know, I don't have any grays when you look at me like this, but I got grays when we go like this. But just the response of people who are younger than me when I tell them I'm 40 is like a beautiful exchange. But yeah, I can feel a lot of emotion in my body as you say that coming up, but we are just, all deserving of this, of loving ourselves. And it's so, we got to get past it. Like we got to, these little, and it just makes me really happy to know that you all stood in your office naked. And I was going to say that if you need to amend the cards slightly to help you take slower steps, go for it. But essentially there are like 60, I lost count, I think there's like 63 cards or something. So there are these really gentle cards on how to, you know, be with your body and just look at yourself. I think there's one standing in front of the mirror naked, and noticing that judgment that comes in, pausing, breathing, standing. And why do we want to do this? And especially women of our generation, why is it important that we hold these spaces with pride, and the courage that it actually takes? Because we see the world around us, we see the tech growing and access to all sorts of different things, and body modification, which of course in modern day feminism is like everyone's choice. But as I age, I'm also really curious of how we do that in an empowering way, and see it more in the world around us as well. And back when Denise was saying, I just want to say that creativity that both her and Judith bring and have brought to our society for, you know, decades now, that creativity is sexual energy. Creative energy is sexual energy. In Tantra, they sit in the same chakra system, which is the one right near the genitals, at kind of your pubic mound. And what we mean by that is essentially the energy is interchangeable. When you feel alive on stage doing stand-up, which I also definitely feel alive on stage at times, the adrenaline and the flirtatious edge that you're at is similar to that adrenaline and flirtatious edge when you're about to get it on with someone maybe who you don't know fully yet, or when you're out flirting with a barista. This is all interchangeable, you know, with creativity. So it's beautiful to broaden the lens and look at the intention and what's accessible to us, and see this as vital life force, eros, and erotic energy.
Vanessa, you mentioned women of our age, and I don't think I'd be alone when I say that the first time I had a conversation around sexuality, my body and sex was a year 9 classroom, teacher standing in there, banana in one hand, franger in the other, and it was awkward. Do you think like women our age have to go back to Sex 101, like basics?
Yeah, I definitely. And I spend a lot of my time talking about those. Well, I don't so much anymore, but those basics, yeah. I don't know. I think we're getting a grip on the anatomy, but still a lot of people don't even know that, 80% of the clitoris is actually inside the body, is internal, that the tip of the clit is just like the tip of an iceberg. And that even science isn't caught up. Like we discovered the clitoris, the full anatomy of the clitoris in 1998. And, I was in year 11 then. My beautiful mother died in 1995. So the fact that science wasn't even around it and is still really not. We're coming up with different ways and understanding still the cis woman's body around orgasm and how that actually works. But to take all that science away and what we have capabilities of doing through the lens of science and actually looking perhaps at, what I deal with a lot is libido and desire, actually wanting sex. And like you were talking, Serpil, that like meet someone, marriage, babies, no more sex, that zone I meet a lot of people in and I'm really curious about. I think maybe there'll be a book in there one day about what's actually happening there and what is happening to our erotic energy, which is life force. It's that like bounce out of the bed, or it's that, for me, it probably feels pretty good around, right this time, 9:15, where I'm like amped and ready and talking to you, this relational exchange that's similar to me flirting. So I'm kind of looped around there.
No, but I'm really interested in what you're saying and what I've kind of gathered from this conversation, which is quite new for me because of my upbringing, where sex was, in that part of my life, and then you go on and you live this part of your life. But what you're saying is that the life force that is in us, and what the whole point of Big Pussy Energy is, it's there all day, every day. It's the playfulness, it's the lightheartedness, it's the joy, it's the, it's just being willing to kind of have that energy of living, actually engaged with living, which I love the idea of that, because it then takes away the pressure that when we read about sex, that you have to perform in a certain way, you have to look a certain way, it's supposed to feel a certain way. No, it could be just, I'm going to walk through, along the beach and feel really kind of sensual and luscious, and that is my sexual energy that day.
Yes.
You've totally
100%.
Converted me. I absolutely love it. I can't tell you, Vanessa. I love it so much.
Really,
because
that makes me, it makes me feel this way, which is similar. It's similar to when I connect with friends. It is like, and we need to see the world with that, and we can harness that. And then how you want to bring that into the bedroom. Like, and I say like this because how we look at sex is kind of so, the experience of it is kind of so limiting. It's like the peak of a mountain. And when I work with clients, I look at, the whole life, because that's more accessible in the healing. And how we are in our day to day can then be channeled into how we show up in the bedroom. So you've got your titties out with your besties and you feel good about that. That means that perhaps you are going to be able to roll over, sit in a way that maybe feels a little previously ugly, and just be free there, make these sounds. A lot of women have issue making sound and being heard through their voice. So that comes into authenticity and speaking for how you would like to be in the world, and then being able to make all those sounds around your pleasure and get it.
I love it. I really, really love it. It's fascinating. It takes courage, I think, because of course we live in a society where women don't we're not given permission to be free and accepting of ourselves in that way. So I'm loving Big Pussy Energy. It's really a transformational experience right here, Vanessa. And I initially warmed to you when I read that you first realised you're a sexual being while watching The Blue Lagoon in the 80s, which honestly I never forget that film. It was very formative for me also, with Brooke Shields as a teenager.
Yeah, it was the first time I got tingles. I remember getting tingles, in my body and particularly my pussy. And I'm going to say, I'm okay saying pussy, and I know that people aren't. But oddly, my parents also gave me that word to use. And my beautiful mum, is not alive, so I can't actually ask her why, and she would know why. Whereas my dad is like, what? We gave you that word? Like, what? He's like, I don't remember. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. But yeah, the Blue Lagoon was like them swimming. I remember just their bodies swimming in the water and being so, like, now I know, aroused. But at the time I was like, oh, yeah. So when I would find out it was coming on TV, I'd jump in my parents' bed while they weren't in the bed, lie naked with a sheet on my body and just watch those scenes.
I love it.
Really
Love it.
let it land.
Let it land. Nice. Vanessa Muradian, thank you so much. It's been awesome to chat with you. Get out and purchase yourself Big Pussy Energy. It is a super fun deck of cards. Give it to your friends, I would say. That's a good gift.
Yeah. Beautiful. And maybe let them hear this conversation too if they need a little more encouragement.
Yeah. And
so thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much. And if you're seeking anything for your pleasure, you could head along to Mia Muse as well, because that's a really fantastic resource as well. Thanks so much for Vanessa Muradian. It's been awesome to speak with you today.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks, Serpil.
Yeah, take care. And Serpil, that's the end of the show.
Oh my gosh, it
flew. Yes, we're 1 minute over, and Ro over there, our producer, is sending us cross text saying it's time to wrap it up. It's been delightful to have you on Broad Radio as co-host.
I had so much fun.
Yeah, we'll have you again soon, and we'll be back next Tuesday with Broad Radio. We'll see you then.